Thank you for joining us today. Black history is American history. Am I right?
Yes.
Yes, I am. As many of you know, we don't just recognize Black history during the month of February. We honor and recognize and tell Black stories all year long here at Windsor Historical Society. Having said this, February is Black History Month. We do host special programs during February to recognize and honor our Black history. Today is a very special one of those programs. My name is Doug Shipman. I'm the director here at Windsor Historical Society. I'd like to welcome you to Windsor Historical Society and to today's program, which we're calling I Can't Die But Once, Living History with Harriet Tubman. A few quick administrative notes before we begin. There is bottled water in the back of the room for your enjoyment, and the restrooms are located off the main gift shop lobby. One of them is directly correlated with the others, so if you have one, you have the other. If you have a little non-Black history humor, okay, very good. If you have a cell phone, and this tells you how old my notes are, or a pager, please silence all cell phones and pagers. And also we ask that only prior approved individuals videotape the performance at the request of the performer, which today is our wonderful partners here from Win TV, manned by our own board president, Randy McKinney today. So thank you, Randy, and thank you to our president. So many of us know a lot about Harriet Tubman. Some may not know a lot about Harriet Tubman. A little bit of background before we get started. Born Araminta Ross around 1822, records are not certain, Harriet Tubman is known as one of the most courageous freedom fighters in U.S. history. Even though she was illiterate and had no formal education, she learned enslaved people. Best known as a conductor of the Underground Railroad, she is believed to have liberated over 300 enslaved people through more than a dozen perilous missions into slaveholding states in the decade before the American Civil War. She shared her knowledge of escape routes and safe spaces with many others. When the Civil War began, Harriet Tubman transitioned her activities from Underground Railroad conductors' service to her country. She continued to support the abolitionist movement and served in the Union Army. She recruited enslaved and formerly enslaved Black people as scouts and spies, and personally led a military action in South Carolina that freed about 750 enslaved people. Following the war, she fought for women's suffrage, raised funds to build schools for newly freed people, and donated her home for care of ill and elderly people, among many other efforts to fight for dignity and equality of all people. What you're about to see today is a solo performance in first person. At the end of the performance, the actor will talk about the character and answer any questions you might have. So please hang on to those questions until the end. Please make yourselves comfortable and enjoy the presentation. And so, is Sue there? Check. To set the stage for what you're about to experience, Harriet Tubman is a guest speaker at the 1896 inaugural meeting of the National Association of Colored Women in Washington, D.C. Her health is waning, but her spirit is strong. Naming a few attenders such as Ida B. Wells, Frances Ellen Harper, Charlotte Fortin Grimke, and Mary Church Terrell, Harriet begins her talk. Go ahead and grab a seat real quick. About to begin.
Hello. Your face is familiar, but I think the last time I saw you, we were in Boston. We helped that woman get away. Yeah. What's your name? Rebecca. Rebecca, yes. Rebecca. Good to see you. Oh, yeah. Oh, remember you too. Yes, yes. You helped me when we were in Troy. Yeah. Good to see you. All my abolition experience. Good to see you. Time is past. I know. We all change, don't we? Everybody look the same, but we're different. Yeah. I'm here to speak on my life. Now, I have lived a long life, and I have much to tell. But if I told it all, we'd be here clear to the next day. And I don't think I would last that long. No. So I won't fiddle around. Won't fiddle around. 31 years ago, we all know what ended. The Civil War. I was there. I was there. Maryland, Virginia, South Carolina, Florida. I was there. And now, my government does not recognize my service in the Civil War. I have become a hugger mother to them. You know what a hugger mother is? Invisible. Invisible. You all know Queen Victoria. Well, she heard of my service, and she sent me a Jubilee medal, a silk shawl, an invitation to her Diamond Jubilee celebration. Now, what does that say? What does that say? Before the war began, I was invited to Boston. It had to be about 1860. I was a guest of the New England Anti-Slavery Society, and I was there to help them raise money for some more rum. While I was there, the women's suffrage sessions were taking place, and I gave a speech on the same platform with my friends, Wendell Phillips and William Lloyd Garrison. Now, they wanted me to not use my real name, Harriet Tubman, but to use the name Harriet Garrison. You know why they did that? You know why? Well, I'm going to tell you why. It was right after John Brown's uprising, and they feared for my life. They feared for my life. Now, while I was still there in Boston, South Carolina secedes from the Union. But I still had a run to make to rescue a woman and her 3 children in Dorchester County. There. The woman carried the small baby in a body sling. And the other 2 children were clinging to her dress, walking behind. And several men came along with her. And they had a old raggedy comfort and a blanket, along with some kindling, some bread, and laudanum to keep that baby from crying. And we walked all night We walked all night. Then I laid the blanket out on the frozen ground behind some bushes, and I went on for it. But I got back late, and my passengers thought I'd be found, so they crept further into the bush. But don't worry, don't worry. I found them. I found them. I whistled, and they all came out. And I got those folks all the way to St. Catherine's, Ontario, Canada, after crossing the suspension bridge over the fall. Now, I was still in Canada when Mr. Lincoln became president. And those rebels were firing on Fort Sumter. But I did make it back to Auburn, New York. And my friend Garrett Smith, well, he wanted me to make another trip to Boston to raise more money. Well, I agreed to come, but first I had to make a stop in Troy, New York. Just excuse me, man. You know, you get a certain age and your mouth just sort of dries up on you. Have some good water here. Oh, Troy. So I had to go to Troy to visit my cousin. There, in Troy, was a man named Nolly. Nolly was his name. Nolly was his name. They were holding him in the U.S. Commissioner's office for his owner to come and retrieve. He was a runaway slave from Virginia. So Charles Nolly was being held, and all the abolitionists were in an uproar because they wouldn't let him into the commissioner's office. I came up with a plan. I was bent on getting him out of there. And I wrapped myself in a shawl. And I walked right into that commissioner's office carrying a food basket. They thought I was a scrub woman. And when time came to bring Nolly out, the bailiffs tried to move me. They tried to move me, but I didn't budge. Then I stripped off my shawl and I screamed out the window. They're bringing Nolly out. They're bringing him out. And I grabbed hold to Nolly, took down one of the sheriff's deputies, then the other. I had my arms around Nolly. I wasn't letting him go. But this was no easy feat. Time and time again, hit over the head with policemen's clubs. Nolly bleeding, blood streaming down his face. I had my outer skirt torn off and my shoes pulled from my feet, but I never let go of the man. Another deputy jumped me. I grabbed his throat, throttled him, and threw him over my shoulder. I got down out there, and I called to the people. Dragged Nolly and me to the river. Got to the river, Nolly still in chains. Blood streaming down his face. Me too. And I tumbled him off into a skiff and took off. Now, there were about 300 abolitionists and deputies. We all got on the same ferry boat. Now, when Nolly's boat took off and he got to the other side, he was seized again. When we got there, there were some boys playing out there on the banks. Asked them where they take now. They told us. They told us. Now you have to understand. We were a group of men and women abolitionists. We found out where they took our now, and we stormed up the judge's stairs. Now, the first man up was this huge Negro man. His name was Martin, and he burst through that door. But a hatchet swung by a deputy took him down. Don't worry. Don't worry. He was stunned, not dead. He was stunned. But his body blocked the doorway. Now, with a number of colored women, we went up those stairs, through that door. I grabbed Nolly, threw him over my shoulder like a sack of meal, and got him out of there. Bullets whizzing across our head. Got outside. A man pulled up in a wagon. Wanted to know what the commotion was about. He told him, and he got the spirit. And he put Nolly in the wagon, and he took off like a scarred bobcat to Schenectady. And Nolly reunited with his wife and 3 children. They, the children, did not have to face the lash of a cruel mistress. Unlike my childhood. Unlike mine. My childhood different from most of you. I grew up like a neglected weed, ignorant of liberty, having no experience of it. At 5 years old, my childhood ended. For I was rented out to a woman to work in her home. I cried, sleeping on the floor, bitterly missing my mom and my papa. I had chores inside and outside the house. I had to care for the baby. The baby's so big, I couldn't sit the baby in my lap. And when nighttime came, my work was not done. I had to rock the cradle steady to prevent the baby from disturbing the master and the mistress. And when that baby wailed, that woman got up, walked across the room, reached up and pulled down a small leather whip, and she struck me across the face and neck. It burned deep, blurring my eyes, and the searing hurt would not let go, would not let go. Then there was the time I was sick with the measles. And they put me on track duty. Muskrat track duty. I had to wade in the icy water up to my waist. checking on the tracks. And when they used me up, they returned me to my owner and my mama. And my mama nursed me back to health, only to be returned again, again, again. Let me tell you something. Harriet Beecher Stowe's book, I had it read to me. Her pen can't paint what slavery really like. The book, Uncle Tom's Cabin, it became a play. I have lived the real thing. I have seen the real thing. And I have felt the real thing. Can't no play do that. Can't no play. Some of you know that when the war began, I did not support Mr. Lincoln. No, I didn't. There was only one thing he needed to do, and that was emancipation. Total and complete emancipation. Now, this is what I wanted to tell Mr. Lincoln. He could send the flower of the young men down south to die of the fever or of the ague in the summer. He can send them 1 year, 2 years, 3 years. He can keep on sending them until they get tired of sending them, or
Bluetooth disconnected. Bluetooth pairing.
Until they get tired of sending them. I don't know use. Cause I want to tell Mr. Lincoln how he can save his money by setting the Negroes free. Is what I wanted to say. Suppose there's a great big old snake down there on the floor, and he bites you. Folks are all scared
Bluetooth connected.
that you're gonna die. So they send for the doctor to come and cut out the bite. Well, the doctor comes and he starts cutting out the bite. But that snake, he's still down there on the floor. Oh, boy. And he bite you again. Now the doctor, he cutting out that bite. And that snake, he's still down there on the floor. And he bite you again. And he's gonna keep on biting you until you do what? Kill that snake. That's right. But I never got to tell Mr. Lincoln that to his face. Never did. So I threw myself into the fray of things to help win the war. And I attached myself to Massachusetts boys. Oh, that had to be about 1861. Slogging along with General Benjamin Butler's men through Maryland. And then I went with him to Fortress Monroe, Virginia. Fort Monroe in Virginia. Fort Monroe was a magnet for runaway slaves. They were coming in there by the hundreds. They had no clothing. They were wearing gunny sacks. They had no shoes, no food. They had nothing but hope. They had hope. Yeah. General Benjamin, he started calling them contraband. Contraband. And he thought that it was very smart to have me train the contraband as spies. No one thought that there were spies in their midst. You know what? God, they didn't believe that a Negro was smart enough to be a spy. So I trained them how to be spies. There were thousands of contraband inside the fort and thousands outside the fort being forced to fight for the Confederates. Some of you might know John Parker. Some of you might know John Parker, a Virginia slave. He was on the artillery, the Confederate artillery in the first battle. He wanted to switch. He wanted to switch, but he couldn't. You know what? His owner stood right behind him with a gun in his hand. John Parker in Alexandria, he made his way to freedom. He walked all the way to Pennsylvania, a free man. That reminds me when I made my run to freedom. Master Borges, he died. And he left his widow in debt. So she had to sell off some of the slaves. I remember 10 years before he died, he sold 3 of my sisters and the children. Children didn't go with their moms. Didn't go with their moms. And they were sold to the deep south. So I knew I was going to be sold. I knew I was going to be sold. So I'm thinking. There's 1 or 2 things I must have. And that's death and liberty. One or the other I will have. But I cannot die in slavery. I cannot die in slavery. So I made up my mind to run. To this very day, I have not forgotten how I felt when I reached the Pennsylvania border and I stepped into freedom. I looked at my hand to see that I was the same person now that I was free. I had crossed the line into freedom. But there was no one there to welcome me to the land of freedom. I was a stranger in a strange land. But I was no stranger to John Andrew, governor of Massachusetts. He was a true Negro friend. He asked me to go with a group of Quaker missionary teachers to South Carolina. And he gave me the funds to do so, not as a teacher, but as a spy. So we got on the federal ship. And when we landed in South Carolina, oh, the heat! The heat made me cry. It was so bitter. Sweat running down my face and down my back. Just standing still. You ever been in South Carolina in the summertime? Well, I stopped complaining because I looked around me and I saw all these contraband. They were swarming like bees. They were everywhere. Doorsteps, sitting on barrels, benches. They were everywhere. And I felt like I was in a foreign country. You know why? Ask me why. Because when I spoke with them, they laughed at me. Because they could not understand a word I said. And I couldn't understand them either. Ask me why. They spoke fast. They spoke fast. They saw me as just a woman. They never heard of Moses. But my skin was the same as theirs. But they were suspicious of me because I was receiving the same ration as the white teachers got. So I stopped getting those rations. And I started baking pies and gingerbread, and I made root beer, and I got some of those contraband men to sell it to the white soldiers. Now I paid them. I paid them to sell it to the white soldiers. And I tried to get in with the folks to help them. Now, I taught the women how to do the soldiers' wash. Now they knew how to wash clothes, but for Yankee Dollars. And I helped them build a wash house with my own money, because the government had stopped paying me, but I was still helping. I was still helping. Now, you know, and I know, that the women in the army camp got to be protected from the brutal lust of the soldiers. So I became They protect. And then, as I got closer with the folks, I started recruiting them as spies, scouts. Took them out on scouting expedition. And we gathered information on the Confederate movements, how large they were, and the arms that they had. And all this information gave it to General Saxton. Now, when there's an army camp, there's usually a hospital. Dr. Durant was over this hospital, and he sought me out as a root doctor. You see, you have to understand. His men were dying of the flux. The flux killed more soldiers than a bullet. Now, I knew I could cure it if I could find the same plants that grew in Maryland, if I could find them that grew there in South Carolina. So I went out in the marsh, and I searched, and I searched, and I found water lilies and Cranesville. Any of you know what Cranesville is? I have no good people in here. Geranium. It's geranium. So I took the root of the lily along with the geranium, and I made a bitter tasting brew. And the first person I gave it to, Dr. Durant, and a dying man. And they got cured. And gave it to all the soldiers in the hospital. Now you guys know what the flux is. When you bow, you have no control. That's what the flux is. And it will kill you on the chimney. Well, word got around, spread about my liberty. So a group of Union folks were coming through, and they asked me to come along with them to Amelia Island in Florida to help with the soldiers there. Well, I didn't see any reason not to go, so I went. And I got there and I did the same for those soldiers. I've nursed them, but I also spied, scouted, picked up slaves going down the St. Mary's and St. Anne's River, destroying plantations, giving information to the commanders like General Saxton. And he made up a plan to seize Jacksonville. And Colonel Montgomery was the one that went in and captured it based on my information. Now, I'm still in Florida, but I received word that General Hunter wants me to return to South Carolina. He asked me to return to lead a river raid. Now, a general don't ask. He gives orders. But he asked me. He asked me. So I came back. Now this raid was going to be down the Cumberland River. And this river was so long, twisting, and narrow. So narrow in places that the trees formed a green arch, just blocking out much of the sky. And they had snakes and alligators and eagles and mosquitoes. Mosquitoes so big that when I wiped them off my arm, my hand was covered black with them. Oh, just think. The government gave me 3 gun votes. And Colonel James Montgomery. The dead of night, June 1st, 1863. The dead of night, we went up, and the fog was lying across the rice field. And I was standing on the deck of the John Adams, lead ship, and my man, Wilden Hampton, he was guiding that ship around the mines in the river. My best agent. And standing next to him, Colonel James Montgomery. Went on down that river. We had with us 300 soldiers, some from the 2nd Massachusetts and the 3rd Rhode Island, all colored soldiers going down that river with us. And Colonel Montgomery sent word to his captains to sound their whistles. Sound went out across the water. At first, it scared the slaves, and they dropped what they were doing, and they ran to the woods. Then, the colored soldiers in boats, they went out, calling and telling them, "These are Lincoln's gunboats. Come to set you free." Oh, Lordy, you should have seen it. You should have seen it. They all come running out of the woods towards the gunboats. Lordy, you should have seen it. You should have seen it. There were women with children hanging around their necks, hanging to their clothes on the back. They're all rushing towards the river. Lordy, you should have seen it. You should have seen it. Right then, the overseers, they come. And they cry out, "Yankee, come! See you to Cuba! See you to Cuba! Turn around! Turn around!" They kept on coming. Some killed, but they kept on coming. To this very day, I can still hear their screams, their hoots, and their wails as they made their way to the boats. There were people. They were all along the banks of the river, had their hands stretched out toward their deliverers. And there were people out on the boats, hanging on to the boats, afraid they'd be left behind. The soldiers afraid the boat's going to tip over. So they hitting them with their hands and the oars. They trying to make the boats get off. Colonel Montgomery, he calls to me. He say, Moses, Moses, do something. Help your people. My people? They know more my people than they was his people. The only thing is that we's all Negroes. I didn't know what to do. So I started clapping and singing, clapping and singing. All the people on the river bank, they started clapping and singing, clapping and singing. All the people holding on to the side of the boat, they started clapping and singing, clapping and singing. And the boat took off. The boat. There were women. This one woman, she had a pail on her head, smoking with the rice, like she had just taken it off the fire. And there was a young one hanging on to her. He had one hand around her forehead, and that other hand he had in that rice eaten with all. Oh, Lord, and you should have seen it. You should have seen it. They were coming with their chickens tied by the legs. They had their pigs in bags hanging down their back. There was one woman. She came with 2 pigs. We took them all on board. One pig was white, one was black. And we named the white pig Beauregard. And that black pig, Jeff Davis. Oh, Lord. You should have seen. Chickens squawk, pigs squealing, children scream, all running to come. Should have seen children. We were dropping off soldiers and picking up people all the way down there. We destroyed 9 plantations. We burned buildings. We took things on board that we needed. What we didn't need, we burned. We destroyed the sluice gates that protected the rice. We destroyed them. Destroying thousands of acres of what the planters called Carolina gold. We went on down that river. Collecting gold. Soldiers couldn't stop. Soldiers could not stop us. We did not lose a single man. We had about 700, maybe 750 men, women, and children on board. And we had to spend the night all crowded together before getting back into Beaufort. Oh, I did forget it. I did forget. There was one casualty. When I was out there in the water, I was helping one woman bring her pigs out. Well, I stepped on my skirt and got stuck in the mud. I almost tore it completely off. And when I got on the ship, I was nothing but rags. Nothing but rags. That's the only casualty of the comedy rail. My skirt. And you know what? I got a package from the Dear Women in Boston. They sent me some bloomers. I never put on another skirt again during a raid. Never again. We got all those folks. Got them into view. And you know what? the government was not paying. But they put me in charge of all of those refugees. Put me in, but I did what I could. I started cooking and washing clothes to have some money to help these folks. I served meals to the officers. You might know one of them. Robert Gould Shaw, Colonel Robert Gould Shaw of the 54th Massachusetts, all-colored unit. I served him his last meal, for he died along with his men June 18th at Fort Wayne. My government. I spied. I recruited. I scouted. Yet I am invisible to them. I believe that all people are equal. When the sun rises, it rises over everyone. God said we are all equal. Acts 10:34. So, my dear friends out here, I need your help. Send your letters. Send your letters on behalf of me so that I can receive what is due me. I thank you and I love you all.
Wow. Please take your seats. We're not. Thank you, Gwendolyn. As Harriet Tubman. Now, ladies and gentlemen, we're going to be the actor who portrayed Harriet Tubman so convincingly and amazingly. I'd like to introduce you to Gwendolyn Quezaire-Presutti. She's an award-winning artist. In recognition of the quality and the range of her work, she has been recognized in many ways throughout her long career. I'd like to mention just a few of those ways. The Theater and Museums Interpretation Techniques certification at the Children's Museum of Indianapolis. Just listen to where these places are. This is not all in Connecticut, right? This is in the United States. Alliance Award for Valuable Service and Support Institute of Texan Cultures in San Antonio, Texas. Institute of Texan Cultures Directors Award for Excellence. Recipient of ESA Connecticut Portraying Sarah Harris at State Museum, Crandall. Certificate of Merit from the Office of the Secretary of State, Connecticut, East Narrow, Crandall Museum. Greater Hartford Arts Council and Boston Fund Individual Artist Fellowship. First place in the International Toastmasters Award, Interpretive Reading. Strawberry Bank Museum's American Lives, a Timeline, Living History, Most Authentic Feeling of 2019. Living History Performer at American Independence Museum. Living History Performer for Humanities to Go New Hampshire 15 years from many other historical societies and museums across the United States. And she was crowned Miss Senior Connecticut. With us today is Harriet Tubman. I'd like to turn it back to Gwendolyn to answer your questions.
Any questions? Yes.
I have one. When you're still, it's 1896, correct?
Mm-hmm.
That year. Are you asked any questions about 1865? Because at that time, did Harriet know that the slaves had been freed?
Oh, yeah.
How do you handle that? I always thought that was pretty cool.
Well, Harriet, she was a woman that not only was fighting for freedom for slaves, enslaved people, but she was also one that believed in women's rights as well. So she was a friend of, just had it on top of my head, just performed over that. Say that again?
Ida Wells.
Anthony. Yeah, I performed at her home, said Susan Ann. Susan Ann, yeah. So she was friends with her. Yeah.
Thank you.
Yes.
I was just wondering, there's so many amazing aspects to Harriet Tubman's life. Why did you, or how did you come about to decide which specific area to focus on when determining your monologue?
Oh, I love that. I am a member of the Solo Together Guild of living history actors in Cambridge, Massachusetts. And so one of the members was putting on a living history festival with the 54th Massachusetts. And he wanted me to do Harriet Tubman, and I said no, because the Harriet Tubman that I knew growing up was all about for children and the quilts and her bringing people out of slavery. So I didn't want to do Harriet Tubman. He kept at me. So finally, I said to him, "Let me do my research. Let me research, and I'll let you know whether or not I'll do Harriet Tubman." I started researching, and it blew my mind. I never learned that in college nor in school, all of this about Harriet Tubman. So it became difficult for me to choose what I was going to talk about. So I have changed this script so many times because I'm always learning something new. But when I found out the way she lived, okay, as a child, I didn't know that. I didn't, so I had to put that one in. There was a lot more that happened to her, but those two I put in. Her parents, one was owned by one person, and then mother owned by another, and her father became free before any of the other ones. And at one time, Harriet and her mother's children all were set free. However, they did not let them know that when the man died. Yes. So really, she was free but being held. Okay. So that was interesting. So, oh my goodness. So she really was not. I can't die but once. So she died many times before she got to where she wanted to be. The other thing about that is that I didn't know anything about colored soldiers in the Civil War. So here I'm standing with all these men that are telling me stories. I said, oh my God, I got to put that in there too. So it's just so much. Girl. I got stuff and stuff. Okay. So I have to go over it sometimes. Thank you so much. Did I answer your question?
Sure.
Oh, thank you so much. Thank you so much. Yes.
Can you tell us if Harriet Tubman had any interactions or any collaboration with Frederick Douglass?
Oh yes, he wrote her a beautiful letter. Oh yes, they were very close, good friends. So I had to decide whether or not to put that in there or not. But he left her a beautiful letter. He really did. They were very close. Yes. That answered that. Yeah. Oh yeah. Yeah, they were close. Well, they both were always up in Boston all the time. So yeah. Did I say anything? Yes.
Yeah, I just wanted to commend how you introduced her relationship to the women's movement with the Bloomers there. It's like, oh, I didn't know she had those connections, and
Yeah.
nice job.
Yeah. And that was named after the woman who
Amelia.
yeah. I mean the Bloomers, right. Okay, I see somebody over here.
I'm just trying to think, and what you learned, that she's taking all these people out, they gotta eat, they gotta drink water, that there's scurvy, there's everything. How they're managed.
Harriet, as an enslaved person, had many jobs she had to do. One of the jobs, she worked hauling wood. Okay. So she knew the forest. She knew what she could eat and not eat because her mother showed her that. Her mother was a root woman. As a matter of fact, my grandmother was a root woman. And I never got sick when I was at my grandmother's. Anyway, she knew all these things. And I had a woman ask me, well, how big was she? Was she a big woman? No. She was shorter than me. She was a small woman. So how could she be throwing men over her shoulder? She had strength and she had determination. That's how. Just like when some women, I read this, a woman, it was a car accident and her children were in the car and she had the strength to pull up that car. That's the kind of strength that Harriet had, even though she was small. She had the strength of mind and she had the strength of
And then she drove back down again.
And she only got 70 people from her home, Maryland. The children's view will say that she went and got 500 something people. No. She only went into Maryland to retrieve her family. But she did, with the raid, 750 people. Let me tell you about that. The raid where they were going down there in the Sea Islands. The Sea Islands, that's Creole. They were speaking Creole and African mixed together. That's why she didn't understand. That's why she didn't understand. It was Creole. My father is Louisiana Creole, so I know. That's why she didn't understand it. So, see that I got on.
You know,
Got down.
they're like, I can't carry load.
Oh.
I can't imagine carrying it off.
Yeah. So, that's what she did. And when she was down there in the Sea Islands, destroying those plantations, there was 9 of them they destroyed. One was owned by a man who had, you ready for this? Because she was sick because she was wore out. 3,482 enslaved people. That's one planter. And there were 9 plantations. That's one planter. And all they got out was around 700. So that really hurt. And she had 3 gunboats, but one got caught in the mire, so it was only 2 gunboats. Only 2 gunboats left.
Is it true that she had a brain injury that never
Yes.
healed?
Yes. When she was like in her teens, and a young man was trying to escape, and he was going out the door, and she was going out the door too, and she got hit with a weight in her head. This is how brilliant this woman is. She got hit with a weight in her head, knocked her out for several weeks. Yet she brought those people and never was caught, never was stopped. And she would fall asleep without even knowing when she was going to fall asleep. And they trusted her that much. They knew that they had to stay there. She would fall out on one of those trips. And when she wake up, she start off again. And she even had brain surgery. She did. Now, just think about it. Brain surgery in the 1800s. I don't think so. But she lived until 1913, but they're not sure when she was born because her owner, he was kind of messy. He didn't even put down when she was born. So they think anywhere between 1820 and 1823 or 24. So they're not even sure. But she always said that she was born in 2015 or something like that. But no one knows for sure. No one.
I went to another interracial discussion group at a different place. Someone made a comment which I'd like to share. Plantation is too pretty a word. Call them concentration camps.
Yes, that's exactly. Yeah, it was a concentration camp. They did not live within the confines of the fabulous house that the owners lived in. They lived out in their hut. But I never heard that before. I think that's very good. Yes.
I've always been curious about why it took so long for the people in Texas to find out that they were free. I know it's a thing, but I never knew why it took so long for them to realize they weren't slaves anymore.
Because the government did not go and tell them. Plain and simple.
But why?
But why? They didn't. They just took their time, like they took their time with everything else. They just took their time. There really is no real reason.
Yes.
They just took their time. They took their time. And till the soldiers came down there, the Union soldiers, they had no idea.
Or it was economically disadvantageous.
Right.
Yeah. And that's where
Juneteenth, yeah.
comes.
Always wondered.
That's where Juneteenth comes from. Yeah, I lived in Texas for about 7 years. I enjoyed it. Yeah.
Do you find in 2024, when you're enacting these things, are you accepted with most people, or do you still run into any kind of, I hate that word, racial tension? We are getting.
I haven't had any problem with it.
Wonderful, wonderful.
Okay.
We're all
Okay.
in rep. Okay.
Okay.
And after.
Okay. I'm a cheesehead. I'm from Wisconsin. Milwaukee is my home. Milwaukee is my home. My mother and father, they passed away, but my father, Louisiana Creole. My mother from Missouri, whichever part you're from. And I have 5 brothers. I have 1 sister. I have 2 sons. I have 10 grandchildren. I have 5 great-grandchildren. And the latest great-grandchild, he just turned 1 in November 2020. And they live in Texas. Now, when I was in Texas, nobody wanted to come to Texas. Now everybody's moving to Texas. Now, the reason I'm here in the Nutmeg State, I was down, I retired from social welfare in Milwaukee. And I sold my home and I moved to Texas. I'm going to live in Texas for the rest of my life. Okay? That's what I thought. Because when I was attending UWM, my professor, Lloyd Barbie, he was the one that handled the African American studies. And that's when I found out a lot about my history, American history. And I love cowboys. I love them. So I always wanted to go to Texas. Because when I found out that there were 2 black cowboys out of every 5, I said, I got to go to Texas. Well, okay, I'm down there in Texas, and I'm learning about all of this. And I'm working at the Institute of Texan Culture. And my girlfriend decides to marry a man from Manchester. And 14 of his friends come down and want to sing. So that's how I came here. Now, I didn't like it at first. I did not like New England. No, I did not like it. Because your road system sucks. Nothing's on a grid. Nothing's on a grid. So it took me 20-something years to get used to that, okay? So it's really, I love the Midwest, but I love it here in New England because you love your history. Love your history. Thanks for that. Now, that's all I got to say for now.
Thank you, folks. We're got just a couple more quick things to do here today, so please don't all get up and run away. And Gwendolyn, please don't run away on me. So, oh, sure, as an very aged woman. As an honorary Windsor person now, since you're moved to Connecticut and all that business, we want to present you with something that we give to our presenters because it's a special. When you open it, you'll see it's the Windsor community, and it's drawn by our very talented office manager / graphic artist, Tate Portaro. To drink whatever herbal remedy appropriate for other. And folks, let's give Gwendolyn one more. This is hard work, physically, hard work emotionally. You carry it on with just amazing talent. Thank you so much. I just want to, I know we've gone a little bit over our allotted time, but wanted to say a couple other quick things. As I mentioned at the opening, we have a series of events planned for Black History Month. Our next one is just next week, Wednesday, February 28th at 5:30, right here in this room. It's the next one in our series of exploring Black history conversations. They used to be lunch conversations, but we moved into evening, and we're providing food in hopes that we can attract. If Black history doesn't attract you, maybe the promise is so go on down, and this topic for this is women's endeavors. Obviously, the focus is on Black women's endeavors here in Windsor. I hope you'll come and join us. If you've not already experienced our newly updated permanent exhibition entitled Bridges and Belonging, I encourage you to take a look. Following our program, the galleries are right outside the gift shop area there. You'll find many fascinating stories, images, and artifacts that will help tell the stories of Windsor's Black residents, which have often been excluded in the past. And additionally, if you're interested in continuing your personal learning about Black history, we have a wide range of excellent books for both adults and young people in our gift shop. I hope you'll check them out. Thank you again for being here today. Thank you, Gwendolyn, again very much.
Thank you.